7 senior managers emerged from the shadows of the underground parking garage, forming a semicircle around me. It was 9:15 on a Thursday night in downtown Chicago, and I was alone. Craig Hendricks, the VP, stepped closer. Refusing our offer was a mistake, Erica. The others blocked my path. Dale, Gary, Todd, Marcus, Stuart, Glenn. Their faces held threats, the fluorescent lights made sharper. You'll regret this. I stayed calm, smiled slightly, and opened my car door. Inside sat a manila folder on the passenger seat, a document they never knew existed. I picked up the folder and held it where they could see. My hands were steady, even though my heart hammered against my ribs. Gentlemen, I said quietly, I think you should know what this is before you continue. Craig's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? I opened the folder to the first page. 3 years of work. 3 years of careful documentation. Late nights. Stolen moments when I thought no one was watching. But I was the one watching them. This is evidence, I said. Photographs of falsified audit reports. Spreadsheets showing embezzled funds being moved through shell companies. Emails proving that the 7 of you created fake vendor accounts to siphon $12 million from company coffers over the past 4 years. Dale's face went pale. Gary took a step backward. Todd's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I have photos of your private server logs, I continued, my voice gaining strength. Bank statements showing deposits into your personal accounts. Wire transfer receipts. Everything. Craig's face had gone from red to white. You're lying. Am I? I flipped to another page, turning it so he could see the printout of an email chain between him and Marcus, discussing how to route funds through a shell company in Delaware. His own words, his own digital signature. This is why I rejected the promotion to Director of Compliance, I said. You wanted to bring me into your circle. Make me complicit. Make me part of your scheme. But I've known about this for 3 years. I documented everything instead. Stuart found his voice, shaky and thin. What do you want? I want you to leave me alone, I said simply. I've already made copies. They're in secure locations, safety deposit boxes, cloud storage with timed releases, trusted friends who have instructions. If anything happens to me, if I have an accident, if I suddenly disappear, if I lose my job under suspicious circumstances, everything goes to the FBI and the SEC simultaneously. The silence in that garage was absolute. Somewhere above us, traffic hummed on the city streets. Down here, 7 men who thought they held all the power realized they held none. Stay away from me, I said. And I stay quiet. It's that simple. They backed away slowly, like animals retreating from something they didn't understand. Craig's hands were clenched into fists, but he was smart enough to know he'd lost this round. I got into my car, locked the doors, and drove away. My hands didn't start shaking until I was 3 blocks away. Pulled over in a McDonald's parking lot, hyperventilating into my steering wheel. But I'd won. I'd protected myself. I went home that night feeling safer than I had in years. I was so naive. The next morning, Friday, I arrived at the office at 8:30. My desk phone was ringing before I'd even set down my bag. Erica, this is Susan Moreland from HR. I need you to come to my office immediately. Susan's tone was cold, professional, wrong. Susan and I had always been friendly. We'd had lunch together a month ago. I walked to the HR floor with a growing knot in my stomach. When I entered her office, 2 security guards stood by the door. Susan sat behind her desk, her face carefully neutral. And there, in the chairs across from her, sat Craig Hendricks and our company's head of security, Ron Palmer. Sit down, Erica, Susan said. What's this about? We have some very serious allegations, Ron said, opening a folder on his lap. We've discovered evidence that you've been embezzling funds from the company." The world tilted. "What?" Susan slid documents across her desk. "Your digital signature is on these fund transfer authorizations. Bank statements showing deposits into an account under your name at First National Bank. Wire transfers totaling $875,000 over the past 18 months. I stared at the papers. They looked real. My signature, perfectly forged. Account, numbers, dates, amounts. "This is fake," I said. "This is fabricated. I never signed these. That's not my account." "The account has your social security number attached," Ron said. "Your home address, your date of birth. Then someone stole my identity." My voice was rising. "This is fake." Craig spoke for the first time, his voice dripping with false concern. "Erica, if you're having financial problems, if you made a mistake, it's better to admit it now. We can work something out." I looked at him, understanding flooding through me like ice water. They'd been working all night. While I slept, feeling safe and victorious, they'd been creating this, fabricating evidence, building a case against me, turning the tables. My document meant nothing if I was discredited as a thief first. "I want a lawyer," I said. "That's your right," Susan said. "But as of this moment, you're suspended without pay. Pending investigation. Security will escort you out. Your access badges are deactivated and your computer has been seized for forensic examination." The security guard stepped forward. I stood on shaking legs. "This is a setup," I said. "Check my real bank accounts. I don't have any extra money. Check my spending. This is fabricated." "We'll investigate thoroughly," Susan said, but her eyes said she'd already decided. They walked me through the office. Past my coworkers. Past people I'd worked with for 6 years. Everyone stared. Whispered. Sarah from accounting looked at me with disgust. Tom from marketing wouldn't meet my eyes. They took my badge, my keys, my laptop bag. Walked me out the front entrance like a criminal. It was 9:45 in the morning. 24 hours ago, I'd had leverage. Now I had nothing. I drove straight to the police station. My hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I had to report the real crime. I had to make someone listen. The detective who interviewed me was a tired-looking man in his 50s named Raymond Kowalski. He listened to my story, took notes, examined the evidence I'd brought, but his expression grew more skeptical with every minute. "Miss Erica," he said finally, "I understand you're upset, but the company has already filed charges against you. They have documentation, bank records, digital signatures, which are forged," I said. "I'm telling you, 7 senior managers at my company have been stealing millions. They framed me to discredit my evidence. Do you have proof these documents are forged?" "No, but I have proof of their crimes." I pushed my folder across his desk. He flipped through it slowly. "And how did you obtain this evidence?" I hesitated. "I photographed documents. Accessed some servers after hours." "Servers you were authorized to access?" "Not exactly, but I'm a senior financial analyst. I have clearance to most systems. But not these specific systems?" "No." Detective Kowalski closed my folder. "Miss Erica, I'm going to be honest with you. Even if everything you're saying is true, the way you obtained this evidence is problematic. You accessed systems without authorization. You photographed confidential documents. A good lawyer would get most of this thrown out. So they just win? They frame me and get away with it? I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to hire a good attorney. A criminal defense attorney. Because the evidence against you looks very convincing." I left the police station feeling like I was drowning. I spent the weekend researching lawyers, making calls, burning through what little savings I had. On Monday morning, I met with Patricia Drummond, a criminal defense attorney who'd been recommended by a friend of a friend. Patricia was in her late 40s, sharply dressed, with intelligent eyes that assessed me carefully. Her office overlooked Lake Michigan, all glass and expensive furniture. Her retainer was $15,000. I wrote the check, watching my savings account plummet. She reviewed everything over the next week. My evidence against the 7 managers. The fabricated evidence against me. She brought in a forensic accountant, a digital security expert. It cost me another $5,000. When she called me back to her office, her expression was grim. Erica, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You're in serious trouble. But my evidence is solid. It proves they're stealing. Your evidence is solid, she agreed. But there's a legal problem called chain of custody. You obtained most of this through questionable means. You accessed servers you weren't authorized for. You photographed documents after hours without permission. A judge might rule it inadmissible. And their evidence is official. It came through proper company channels. It looks legitimate because they made it look legitimate. These are sophisticated forgeries, and they've been very thorough. I felt the walls closing in. What do I do? We fight, Patricia said. But I want you to be realistic about the odds. This is going to be expensive and difficult. My personal life was already crumbling. My boyfriend Jake called me that Tuesday night. We'd been together for 2 years. I loved him. I thought he loved me. Erica, we need to talk. His voice sounded wrong, distant. I knew before he said it. My company does business with your former employer, he said. My boss called me in today. Said I need to distance myself from you. If I don't, there could be consequences for my career. So you're choosing your career over me? It's not like that. I just can't be associated with someone under investigation. You understand, right? No, Jake, I don't understand. He broke up with me over the phone. 2 years. Ended with a 10-minute conversation where he wouldn't even look me in the eye. My parents called the next day. They'd seen articles online. Local business media was covering my case. Financial analyst. Charged with embezzlement. My mother was crying. My father sounded disappointed, distant, like he wasn't sure he believed me. Friends stopped returning my calls. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Wait, I can't use Chen. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, started avoiding me in the hallway. The whispers followed me everywhere. 1 week after my suspension, someone knocked on my apartment door at 8 in the evening. I opened it to find a woman in her 30s holding up FBI credentials. Erica? I'm Special Agent Laura Vance. May I come in? My heart leaped. Finally, someone from the federal level. Someone who could help expose the real criminals. Yes, please, I said, stepping aside. Agent Vance sat on my couch, pulled out a tablet, and my hope died with her first words. I'm here investigating you for wire fraud and money laundering. What? Your former employers have filed federal complaints. They've provided us with evidence suggesting you created an elaborate scheme to steal from the company over an extended period. That's not true. They're the ones who are stealing. They framed me. I've heard your version, Agent Vance said calmly. I've also reviewed the evidence against you, and I need to show you something. She turned her tablet toward me. Email after email, apparently from my account, discussing moving money offshore, detailed plans, conversations about hiding assets, IP logs showing these emails were sent from my home computer. I never sent these, I whispered. They have your email address, your IP address, timestamps that correspond with times you weren't at the office. They hacked my email, spoofed my IP. I don't know how they did it, but this isn't real. Agent Vance studied me. Miss Erica, you're facing up to 20 years in federal prison if convicted on these charges. Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The evidence is substantial. My advice to you is to consider taking a plea deal when it's offered. Cooperate. Show remorse. and you might get a reduced sentence. After she left, I sat in my apartment and cried for the first time since this started. Really cried. Because I understood now. These weren't just clever managers covering their tracks. These were sophisticated criminals who knew exactly what they were doing. They had resources, connections, and no moral boundaries. And I was just one person with dwindling savings and evidence that might be inadmissible in court. Patricia called me the next morning. The federal charges changed everything, she said. Her fees would need to increase. Another $20,000. I sold my car, a Honda Accord I'd bought 3 years ago and loved. I maxed out my credit cards. I borrowed money from my aunt in Wisconsin who didn't ask questions. 2 weeks after the federal investigation began, my bank froze my accounts. The investigation gave them legal grounds. I couldn't access my own money. Couldn't pay rent. Couldn't buy groceries. My landlord served me an eviction notice. I was 34 years old, and I was being kicked out of my apartment. I packed what I could fit in 2 suitcases and moved into a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place where the carpet is stained, and you don't want to touch anything. $75 a night, which felt like a fortune when you have no income. I applied for jobs, any jobs, retail, food service, office work. But my name brought up the charges immediately. No one would hire me. No one wanted an alleged embezzler handling their money or representing their business. I started using the food bank on Thursdays, standing in line with other people who'd fallen through the cracks, holding my paper bag of donated groceries, trying not to cry. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Couldn't sleep. Had nightmares when I did. Panic attacks in the middle of the day. But I kept thinking, kept planning. There had to be a way out. I remembered Connor Walsh, an investigative journalist at the Chicago Tribune. He'd written pieces about corporate fraud before. Good pieces that had actually led to prosecutions. I looked him up online, found his email, sent him my story. He responded within 2 hours, wanted to meet. We met at a diner on the South Side, a place called Rosie's that served coffee in chipped mugs and had booths with cracked vinyl seats. Connor was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a notebook he kept flipping through. I told him everything, showed him everything. He listened, asked questions, took notes. Smart questions. Questions that showed he understood financial systems and corporate structure. This is big, he said finally. If it's true, this is really big. It's true. I'll need time to verify sources, cross-reference documents, find corroborating evidence. Give me 2 weeks. I felt hope for the first time in a month. Real hope. Connor Walsh had credibility. If he published this story, people would listen. The truth would come out. Those 2 weeks crawled by. I checked my email obsessively. I called Connor twice, but he said he was still working. Still digging. Be patient. Meanwhile, the walls kept closing in. Former co-workers gave statements to investigators. They said I'd always seemed too interested in financial records, too curious about things that weren't my business. The 7 managers gave interviews painting me as ambitious, ruthless, willing to do anything to get ahead. Character assassination in full swing. I couldn't afford food. I was eating ramen noodles twice a day, drinking water from the tap. The motel manager kept looking at me suspiciously, probably wondering if I could pay. On day 13, Connor called. He sounded excited. I verified some of your evidence. Found additional sources. People who worked at the company who noticed irregularities. I want to publish. But I need to finalize some details with you first. Can you meet me? Yes. When? Where? Same place. Rosie's Diner. Tomorrow at 2. I got there 15 minutes early. Ordered coffee I couldn't afford. Waited in our usual booth. Connor walked in at 2 on the dot. But he wasn't alone. Craig Hendricks walked in behind him. I stood up so fast I knocked over my coffee mug. It shattered on the floor. The waitress looked over, annoyed. Craig smiled at me. That cold, cruel smile. He slid into the booth across from me. Connor sat next to him, looking guilty, ashamed, unable to meet my eyes. "Hello, Erica," Craig said pleasantly. "Connor and I have had some very interesting conversations." My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. "You see, Connor here has student loans. Quite a lot of them, actually. Nearly $90,000. And his mother has cancer. Stage 3. Very expensive treatments." Connor stared at the table. "I paid him $50,000, Craig continued. "To kill the story. To hand over all your evidence. Every document you gave him. Every communication you had. Every strategy you discussed." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, held it up so I could see. "I now know your entire game plan. Every move you were going to make. Every source you had. And more importantly, I have all your backup evidence." The diner felt like it was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table. Craig leaned forward. "You're finished, Erica. You have nothing left. No evidence, no allies, no money, no hope. So here's what's going to happen. The prosecution is going to offer you a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison. You're going to take it. You're going to plead guilty, serve your time quietly, and this ends. If you fight us, if you keep trying, we'll make sure you get 20 years. We'll add more charges. We'll fabricate more evidence. We own the prosecutors. We own the judges. We own everyone who matters. Do you understand?" I couldn't speak. Craig stood up, pocketed the flash drive. "You have 72 hours to accept the plea deal. After that, the offer goes up to 10 years, then 15, then 20. Tick-tock." He left. Connor finally looked at me, his eyes red. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "My mother is dying. I needed the money. I'm sorry." He left me sitting there alone in a booth at Rosie's Diner with a broken coffee mug at my feet and absolutely nothing left. I couldn't pay for the motel room anymore. On Friday, 3 days after Craig took everything from me, the manager knocked on my door and told me I had to leave. I'd missed 2 nights' payment and he needed the room. I packed my 2 suitcases and took a bus to the homeless shelter on West Madison Street. I'd passed it 100 times in my old life, never thinking I'd be walking through its doors. The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and unwashed bodies. Rows of cots filled a large room. Women and children on one side, men on the other. I got a cot near the back, number 63, and a thin blanket that had been washed so many times it felt like paper. I lay there that night surrounded by others who'd lost everything. A woman next to me coughed all night. Someone was crying. Children whispered in the dark. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the choices that had led me here. I'd done the right thing. I'd documented crimes. I'd tried to expose criminals. And this was where it got me. My public defender, Carl Jensen, was 28 years old and handling 70 cases simultaneously. We met in a cramped office that smelled like old coffee. He had dark circles under his eyes and a tie with a stain on it. "The prosecution is offering a plea deal," he said without preamble. 5 years, possibility of parole after 3. "I'm innocent. I believe you. But the evidence against you is overwhelming. We can't prove it's fabricated. And now, they're adding more charges." "What charges?" "Threatening witnesses. They have testimony from 3 employees who say you sent them threatening messages." "That's completely fabricated. I never threatened anyone." Carl rubbed his eyes. "I know, but we can't prove that. And threatening witnesses adds another 10 years if convicted. You're looking at 30 years total if we go to trial and lose. So I should just go to prison for crimes I didn't commit? I'm saying you should be realistic about your options." I left his office and walked to the public library. Free internet, free warmth, quiet place to think. I'd been spending most of my days there, researching legal precedents, looking for any angle, any loophole, any hope. I'd lost so much weight my clothes hung off me. My hair was unwashed. I looked like what I was, a homeless woman, with no future. The preliminary hearing was scheduled in 2 weeks. After that, if I didn't take the plea deal, I'd go to trial. Carl said trial would take months. I'd probably be denied bail given the severity of charges. I'd wait in jail. I used the library computer to look up the federal prison where I'd probably be sent. Looked at photos of cells. Read accounts from former inmates. This was going to be my life. One friend, Diana, met me in secret. We'd worked together in the analysis department. She was risking her job just talking to me. We met at a Starbucks far from the office. She looked terrified, kept glancing at the door. "Everyone knows you're innocent," she whispered. "Then why won't anyone help me?" "They're scared, Erica." 3 people asked questions about the case. All 3 were fired. Just gone. Everyone else got the message. So I'm alone. Diana reached into her purse, pulled out $200 in cash. "It's all I can spare. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do more." She hugged me, crying, and then left. I sat alone with my coffee, $200 richer, but no less doomed. That night in the shelter, I developed a stress rash across my chest. Painful, itchy, spreading. I couldn't afford to see a doctor. I couldn't afford the cream from the pharmacy. I just scratched until I bled and tried not to think about it. I had panic attacks, real ones, where my chest seized up and I couldn't breathe and the world went gray at the edges. They happened in the library, on the bus, lying in my cot at night. I was 34 years old and my life was over. Late one night, around 11, I heard a sound outside the shelter. I was having trouble sleeping, as usual. I got up, walked to the entrance, looked out the window. An envelope lay on the ground just outside the door. I opened the door, picked it up. No name, no address, just a plain manila envelope. Inside were photographs. Of me. Recent photographs. At the food bank. At the library. Walking alone down the street. A dozen photos, all taken in the past week. And a note, typed on plain paper. "You should have taken the deal. Now it's too late." My hands shook so hard I dropped the envelope. The next morning, Carl called. His voice was tense. "The prosecution is adding more charges. They're claiming you threatened to kill company executives. They have emails allegedly from you making threats." "That's insane. I never did that." "I know. But the evidence looks real. Digital forensics will take months to disprove, if we can disprove it. With these new charges, you're looking at potential life in prison. Life in prison. For crimes I didn't commit, because I'd tried to do the right thing." That afternoon, walking from the library to the shelter, a car pulled up beside me. A silver Lexus. The window rolled down. Marcus Webb sat in the driver's seat, one of the 7 managers. He looked at me with something almost like pity. "Get in," he said. "No, I'm not here to hurt you. Craig wanted me to deliver a message. I don't want to hear it. Get in the car, Erica. You need to hear this." Something in his voice made me comply. I got in the passenger seat. He didn't drive, just sat there with the engine running. "You have 72 hours to accept the new plea deal. 25 years. The prosecution will offer it Monday morning. After that, Craig makes sure you get life. We've planted more evidence. Weapons registered in your name. Threatening letters you supposedly wrote. Detailed plans about how you were going to kill him and the other executives. They'll find everything at just the right time. You'll be charged with conspiracy to commit murder on top of everything else." I stared at him. "You're all monsters." "Maybe," Marcus said quietly. but we're monsters who are going to win. Take the deal. Do your time. At least you'll have a life after prison. Fight this, and you die in a cell." He unlocked the doors. I got out. He drove away. I stood on that street corner, homeless, broken, facing life in prison for crimes I didn't commit, and realized I had absolutely no way out. They'd destroyed me completely. They'd taken everything. My career, my money, my home, my relationships, my freedom, my future, and they were going to win. I spent that night in the shelter staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Around me, people coughed and shifted and whispered. Children cried. Someone snored. The normal sounds of human misery, but I kept thinking, kept running through everything in my mind. Every piece of evidence I'd collected over 3 years. Every document. Every photograph. Every email. And I remembered something. When I first started documenting the fraud 3 years ago, I hadn't just focused on the 7 managers. I'd gone deeper. I'd tried to track the money back to its source, to understand where the scheme originated. The 7 managers hadn't been senior management back then. They'd been middle managers, department heads. Someone above them had to have initiated this. Someone had to have taught them how to move money through shell companies, how to create fake vendors, how to hide millions of dollars. I'd found preliminary evidence suggesting the CEO himself, Richard Ashford, might be involved. But the trail had been too complex, too well hidden. I hadn't been able to prove it definitively. So I'd focused on the 7 managers instead, where the evidence was clearer. But I'd saved my initial research. All of it. On a USB drive. I'd hidden that drive years ago in my gym locker at the company fitness center. The building had a gym on the 3rd floor for employees. I'd been a member. Used it regularly before all this started. I'd put the USB in my locker and never returned for it after I collected enough evidence against the 7 managers. I still had the locker key. It was on my keychain, mixed in with old keys I'd never bothered to remove. I'd never turned in my gym access when I left because they'd escorted me out so fast. It was a long shot. The drive might be gone. They might have cleaned out old lockers. But it was the only shot I had. My access badges were deactivated. Security would recognize me. The building had cameras everywhere. But I had to try. It was Sunday morning. I cleaned up as best I could in the shelter bathroom, put on my least dirty clothes, took a bus across the city to downtown Chicago. The corporate building rose 40 stories. Glass and steel reflecting the morning Sunday I used to work there. Used to have a desk on the 19th floor, a coffee mug with my name on it, coworkers who said good morning. Now I was sneaking around back like a criminal. The loading dock was in the rear, a service entrance where deliveries came early mornings. I waited across the street, watching. At 7:15, a delivery truck pulled up. 2 workers got out, started unloading boxes. I crossed the street, walked quickly, slipped in behind them while they were distracted. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Inside, service corridors, concrete floors, harsh lighting. I found the stairwell, started climbing. The fitness center was on the 3rd floor. Each step felt impossible. I expected security to grab me any second. Alarms to sound. Cameras were everywhere. I reached the 3rd floor, opened the stairwell door carefully. Empty hallway. Early Sunday morning, barely anyone here. The fitness center was at the end of the hall. I walked quickly, trying to look like I belonged, like I had every right to be there. The door was locked, required an active badge to enter. I stood there, staring at the card reader, my last hope dying. Of course it was locked. Why would it be open on Sunday morning? Then I heard footsteps. Someone coming down the hall. I turned. A young guy, maybe 25, athletic build, wearing gym clothes and carrying a water bottle. He had his badge clipped to his shirt. "Hey," he said, smiling. "You need to get in?" I tried to smile back. "Yeah, I forgot my badge. Long week." No problem. He swiped his badge. The door clicked open. Have a good workout. Thanks. I slipped inside before he could look at me too carefully, before he could wonder why he didn't recognize me. The gym was empty. Rows of treadmills, weight machines, the smell of rubber and cleaning products. And in the back, the locker rooms. I went into the women's locker room. My footsteps echoed on the tile. Rows of lockers, painted blue, numbered. Mine had been number 74. Third row from the back. I found it. The key was still on my keychain. I slid it into the lock with shaking hands. It turned. The locker opened. Empty. No USB drive. No anything. Just bare metal. My hope crumbled. Of course they'd found it. Of course they'd cleaned everything out. I'd been stupid to think otherwise. Then I noticed something. A piece of paper at the bottom of the locker. Folded once. I picked it up, unfolded it. Typed text. Looking for this? My heart stopped. They'd been watching me all along. They knew I might try this. They'd found the USB drive. They'd left this note to mock me. But then I noticed something else. Under the note, something small and black. Another USB drive. Not my original one. This was different. Newer. It was labeled in small printed letters. Insurance. I picked it up slowly, staring at it. What was this? Who left this? Footsteps in the hallway outside. Heavy boots. Security. I pocketed the USB drive and the note, closed the locker quietly, looked around frantically. The locker room had one exit. Back into the gym, where security was entering right now. Emergency exit. There, on the far wall, red sign, alarm warning. I ran. Hit the door hard. The alarm screamed. I was in a stairwell, running down, taking steps 2 at a time. Behind me, voices shouting. Security following. I burst out a side exit. Kept running. Across the street. Around a corner. Through an alley. Ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. And I collapsed behind a dumpster 6 blocks away. I sat there gasping, holding a mysterious USB drive from an unknown source, with security looking for me and no idea what I'd just found. But I had something. Maybe nothing useful. Maybe a trap. But I had something. I waited until the library opened at 10. Went straight to a computer in the back corner, where no one could see the screen. My hands shook so badly, I could barely plug in the USB drive. Files appeared on screen. Folders labeled with names I recognized. Ashford Complete Evidence. Wire transfers. Shell companies. Audio recordings. I opened the first folder. My breath caught in my throat. Complete documentation of CEO Richard Ashford orchestrating the entire fraud scheme. Not just the $12 million the 7 managers stole. $40 million over 7 years. Detailed spreadsheets showing how he'd structured everything. Created the shell companies. Set up the fake vendors. But there was more. Much more. A subfolder labeled Original Whistleblowers. I opened it. Documents showing that the 7 managers had discovered Ashford's scheme 5 years ago. They'd been planning to report it. They'd collected evidence, prepared to go to the authorities. And then Ashford found out he had dirt on each of them. Minor infractions, ethical violations, things that would cost them their jobs but weren't major crimes. He blackmailed them, gave them a choice: participate in the fraud and get rich, or be destroyed. They chose to participate. He forced them to expand the scheme, to become active criminals themselves, made them complicit. Once they were in, they couldn't get out. More files. Evidence that Ashford had been planning to frame the 7 managers all along. He was going to let them take the fall for everything. Disappear with the money, and live overseas in luxury while they went to prison. When I rejected the promotion to Director of Compliance, it disrupted his timeline. He'd wanted me in that position so he could frame me too. Create more scapegoats. When I said no, when I started asking questions, he panicked. The managers panicked too. They framed me first to protect themselves, to create a distraction, to buy time. Final folder. True culprit. Audio recordings. I plugged in the computer's headphones. Listened. Ashford's voice. Clear and distinct. Discussing the frame job. Ordering the fabrication of evidence against me. Talking about paying off prosecutors, judges, investigators. Casually discussing eliminating the problem permanently when someone suggested that framing me might not be enough. He meant killing me. He was planning my murder. Video files. Security camera footage from his office. Showing him meeting with the 7 managers, giving orders, threatening them. Timestamps, dates. Everything documented. Bank records showing Ashford's offshore accounts. $40 million moved through banks in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Luxembourg. Wire transfer receipts with his authorization. Everything timestamped, everything documented, everything indisputable. And evidence that he was planning to flee the country in 5 days. He had plane tickets, fake passports, property purchased in Costa Rica under assumed names. I sat back, my mind reeling. This was everything. This proved everything. This would free me and destroy Ashford and expose the truth. But who left this for me? And why? I found one more file. A text document. Read me. I opened it. Erica, I'm sorry. My name is Patricia Drummond. I was never really your attorney. Ashford paid me to sabotage your defense. I was supposed to make sure you took the plea deal, that you went to prison quietly without fighting. My firm has been working for him for 2 years, covering his tracks, managing his legal problems. But I have a daughter your age. Her name is Amy. She's 33, works as a teacher, believes in doing the right thing. When I look at you, I see her, and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't send an innocent woman to prison while a monster walks free. This USB contains everything my firm collected while working for Ashford. He trusted us with his secrets. I stole this from his private safe in our office. I'm leaving the country tonight. By the time you read this, I'll be in Mexico. Then somewhere he can't reach me. Take this to the FBI field office downtown. Ask for Special Agent David Morse. He's been investigating Ashford separately for 6 months. He's clean. He's honest. He'll help you. Give him this evidence. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I'm sorry I betrayed you. I hope this saves you. I hope you can forgive me someday. Patricia, my attorney. The woman I'd trusted to defend me. She'd been working for Ashford all along, sabotaging me from the inside, but she'd had a crisis of conscience. She'd stolen everything. She'd saved me. I pulled out my phone, looked up the FBI field office address, called the number. FBI Chicago field office. I need to speak with Special Agent David Morse, please. It's urgent. Agent Morse is out of office until next week. Would you like to leave a message? Next week? This is an emergency. I have evidence of major, corporate, fraud. I can connect you with the duty agent. No, I need Agent Morse specifically. When does he return? Monday, October 30th. He's at a training conference in Virginia. That was 6 days away. I had 72 hours to accept a plea deal for 25 years. Ashford was leaving the country in 5 days. Can you give me his cell phone? His email? Any way to reach him? I'm not authorized to provide that information. You can leave a message, and he'll return your call when he's back. Dead end. Morse was unreachable. I had evidence, but no one to give it to. No one I could trust. I left the library, walked aimlessly through the city. People passed me, living their normal lives, going to brunch, shopping, laughing, while I carried proof of massive crimes and had no way to stop the criminals. The sun was setting when I heard a car pull up beside me. A black SUV with tinted windows. Doors opened. Hands grabbed me. I tried to scream, but someone put a hand over my mouth. They dragged me into the vehicle. 3 men. I recognized 2 of them, Craig Hendricks, Dale Preston. The other one I didn't know. They drove in silence. I sat between Dale and the unknown man, my heart racing. Craig was in the passenger seat, not looking back. We drove to the industrial district on the south side. Warehouses, abandoned buildings, no people around. They pulled me out of the SUV, walked me into an empty warehouse with broken windows and trash scattered across the concrete floor. I thought they were going to kill me. This was it. Ashford had ordered my elimination, but then Craig spoke. "We know you have Ashford's files." I tried to keep my face neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about. Patricia contacted us before she fled. Told us what she did. Told us she gave you everything." The other managers emerged from the shadows. All 7 of them. Todd, Gary, Marcus, Stuart, Glenn. They surrounded me. "You're working together?" I said. "You're all going to kill me?" "We're not here to kill you," Dale said quietly. "We're here because we need your help." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You need my help? You destroyed my life. You framed me, ruined me, threatened me." "We know," Craig said. "And we're guilty of that. We did terrible things to you. But Ashford is planning to destroy us too." Marcus stepped forward. "He's framing us just like he framed you. We found out 3 days ago. He's got evidence prepared that makes us look like the masterminds of everything. When he leaves the country, we all go to prison and he lives free with $40 million. You deserve prison," I said. "Maybe," Gary said. "Probably. But not for 50 years while he escapes. We were cowards. We let him blackmail us. We participated in crimes. But he's the monster who designed all of this." Stuart pulled out his phone, played a recording. Ashford's voice. "When the time comes, eliminate the problem permanently. All of them. The managers, the analyst, anyone who knows too much. I want solutions, not witnesses." He meant all of us. Ashford was planning to kill the 7 managers and me. Clean sweep. No loose ends. "We're not asking for forgiveness," Craig said. "We're asking for an alliance. You have evidence against Ashford. We have evidence against him. Together, we can take him down. We'll confess to everything we did. We'll accept whatever prison time comes. But we won't let him win." I stared at them. These men who'd cornered me in a parking garage, who'd fabricated evidence, destroyed my career, threatened my life, who'd made me homeless and broken. And now, they wanted to work together. "Why should I trust you?" I asked. "You shouldn't," Marcus said. "We don't deserve trust. But we're all dead if we don't stop him. He's leaving in 5 days. Once he's gone, we all lose. We all die or rot in prison while he lives in paradise." "Agent Morse is unreachable," I said. "Marcus knows him," Craig said. "They served in the army together. Marcus can reach him directly. Call in a favor. Get him to meet with us immediately." I looked at Marcus. "You know a FBI agent and you didn't reach out before?" "I didn't want to go to prison," Marcus said honestly. "I was protecting myself. But now Ashford is going to kill me. My priorities have changed." The warehouse was quiet except for the wind whistling through broken windows. 7 criminals who'd destroyed my life, asking me to save theirs. But they were right about one thing. If Ashford escaped, I'd never be free. He'd always be out there, with resources and connections, able to hurt me, and he deserved to pay for what he'd done. If I do this, I said, you all confess. Every crime. You allocate your assets to restitution. You serve whatever time the court decides. And you testify against Ashford for everything. They looked at each other. Deal, Craig said. Marcus made the call right there in the warehouse. Put it on speaker so we all could hear. David? It's Marcus Webb. I need a favor. A big one. Life or death. Agent Morse's voice came through tinny but clear. Marcus? I'm at a training conference. This better be important. It is. I have evidence of massive corporate fraud. $40 million. Multiple federal crimes. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And he's fleeing the country in 5 days. Silence. Then, I'm listening. Marcus explained everything. Me, the 7 managers, Ashford, the frame jobs, the evidence. Morse asked questions. Sharp questions. He wasn't a fool. I need to see this evidence, he said finally. And I need everyone involved present for statements. Can you arrange that? Yes, tonight. I can catch a flight out of Dulles in 3 hours. Meet me at the Chicago field office at 11 tonight. We went together, all 8 of us, 7 criminals and 1 victim, united by desperation. The FBI field office was a fortress of concrete and glass. Security checked us in, took our phones, walked us to a conference room with a long table and harsh fluorescent lights. Agent Morse arrived at 11:30. He was in his 40s, fit, with gray at his temples and eyes that missed nothing. He looked at Marcus, then at the rest of us. This better be legitimate. I plugged in Patricia's USB drive. We spent 3 hours going through everything. Morse asked questions, took notes, verified details. He brought in other agents. They examined the evidence with forensic software, checking timestamps, authentication, metadata. At 2 a.m, Morse leaned back in his chair. This is everything I've been looking for. We've been investigating Ashford for 6 months, but couldn't get enough evidence for charges. This is airtight. What happens now? I asked. Now we move fast. If Ashford is leaving in 5 days, we don't have time to waste. He looked at the 7 managers. You're all going to be charged. You understand that? Yes, Craig said. We'll cooperate fully. We want deals for cooperation. That's between you and the prosecutors. But cooperation will help. Morse turned to me. You're the victim here. Your charges will be dropped immediately. I'll contact the prosecutor's office first thing in the morning. I felt something loosen in my chest. Something that had been tight for so long I'd forgotten what breathing felt like. Morse made calls. Got warrants. Mobilized teams. The FBI moved like a machine when it wanted to. At dawn, they raided Ashford's mansion in Winnetka. Arrested him in his bedroom. Still in pajamas. He tried to deny everything. Threatened lawsuits. Dropped names of important people he knew. It didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. They seized his computers, his files, his offshore account information. Found fake passports, plane tickets to Costa Rica, property deeds under assumed names. Richard Ashford, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, was going to prison for a very long time. The next week was a blur. My charges were dropped with a formal apology from the prosecutor's office. They held a press conference, said there had been a miscarriage of justice, that I was innocent, that the real criminals were being prosecuted. The 7 managers were charged with fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. But because they cooperated, because they testified against Ashford, their sentences were reduced. 3 to 5 years each instead of 20. They had to allocate their personal assets to a restitution fund. Their careers were over, their reputations destroyed. But they were alive, and they'd done one good thing in the end. Ashford went to trial 6 months later. With the evidence and testimony, it took the jury 4 hours to convict him on all counts. The judge gave him 30 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. The company faced a massive lawsuit. Multiple lawsuits. They settled for $23 million. As the primary whistleblower, I received $3.2 million, more money than I'd ever imagined having. My former coworkers reached out, said they were sorry, said they'd been scared. Some apologies felt genuine. Some felt like they just wanted to be on the winning side. Jake called. Said he'd made a mistake. Said he wanted to try again. I said no. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some bridges, once burned, stay ashes. Connor Walsh, the journalist who'd sold me out, wrote a redemption piece. Exposed everything. Dedicated the article to my courage. It won awards. I didn't read it. I used the settlement money carefully. Paid off debts. Helped my parents with their retirement. Donated to the homeless shelter where I'd stayed. And I started my own consulting firm. Helping companies detect internal fraud. Protecting whistleblowers. Teaching people how to document evidence properly. I testified before Congress about corporate accountability and whistleblower protections. My life had purpose again. I moved to Denver for a fresh start. Mountains and clean air and a city where people didn't know my story. I bought a small house with a garden. Adopted a dog named Scout. I met someone new eventually. Andrew, a teacher at an elementary school. Kind, patient, genuine. It took me months to trust him, to believe someone could just be good without ulterior motives. But slowly, carefully, I opened my heart again. 6 months after everything ended, I was invited to speak at Northwestern University's business ethics class. Standing in front of 60 students, looking at their young faces full of idealism, one raised her hand. How did you survive it? How did you keep going when you'd lost everything? I thought about that parking garage. 7 men cornering me. The folder in my car. How confident I'd felt that night. How naive. The truth is still the truth, I said. Even when powerful people want to bury it. It doesn't disappear because someone fabricates lies. Document everything. Keep records. Trust. Carefully. And remember this. When you think you have nothing left to lose, you become dangerous to those who tried to destroy you. They took my job, my money, my reputation, my home, but they couldn't take what I knew and what I'd proven. That was my power. The truth, protected and preserved, is a weapon that never loses its edge. A young man in the back raised his hand. What about the people who betrayed you? The managers who framed you? Do you forgive them? That's complicated, I said. They were cowards who became criminals. They hurt me in ways I'm still healing from. But they were also victims of a bigger monster. Ashford blackmailed them, controlled them, was planning to kill them. In the end, they chose truth over self-preservation. It doesn't excuse what they did. It doesn't erase my pain, but it reminds me that people are complex. That redemption is possible if you're willing to face consequences and tell the truth. I don't forgive them, but I understand them better now. After class, students came up to ask more questions, to tell me their own stories of injustice, of workplace problems, of ethical dilemmas. I gave them my card, told them to reach out if they needed help. That evening, I walked through Cheeseman Park as the sun set. Leaves were falling, gold and crimson. October in Denver is beautiful. The air smells like pine and coming snow. I was 35 now, stronger than I'd ever imagined possible, scarred but not broken, changed but not destroyed. My phone rang. A company in Seattle needed help detecting potential fraud. They'd heard about my work. I answered the call. This is Erica. Tell me what's going on. Because I knew now. You can lose everything and still win. You can be destroyed and rebuild yourself better. You can face impossible odds and come out the other side, as long as you refuse to lose yourself, as long as you hold on to truth when everyone else is drowning in lies. I'd been cornered in a parking garage by 7 men who thought they had all the power. They'd taken everything from me, broken me down to nothing. But I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. And that's the most powerful thing of all. So let me ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing cost you everything? Where standing up for truth meant losing what you loved? What choice did you make? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that truth matters even when it's hard, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about everyday people who refuse to give up. Share this with someone who needs to remember that they're stronger than they know. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing that justice matters, that truth wins eventually, even when it takes longer than we'd like. Stay strong, keep fighting, and remember, they can take everything except what you know is true.